excellent. One of the chief features of the resurgence of socialism internationally that this conference is part of has been a resurgence of interest in socialism amongst young people. And our next speaker is Lucy Diaz-Ola, who is the political editor of Teen Vogue.
Pleasure to be here today. When it comes to the imagination of a world without capitalism, I frequently think of a quote from the seminal science fiction author Ursula K. Le Guin that goes, "We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings." Le Guin's work, particularly the revolutionary drama of Dispossessed, is oftentimes a testament to the power of imagination, underscoring how essential it is to overcome central unspoken assumptions about the inertia of the systems around us. I have just tried my own hand at this in a Western short story due out next month in Commune magazine. In it, I imagine a mining town in America's Old West, liberated by an outlaw and the daughter of a freed slave, who together turn miners into lavender farmers, wresting control of the town from mine bosses and instituting rule by democratic committees. But as you may well imagine, my day job is frequently not able to operate with the optimism that's possible in fiction. As a writer and editor at Teen Vogue, I grapple daily with the tension between challenging capitalism and living within it. How else could I describe the irony of quoting Gramsci or Marx while writing from a desk in the World Trade Center? Central to the work of journalism is not imagination, but fact, which is all too frequently not compatible with optimism. The fact is, in the U.S., an entire generation is coming of age in an era of social, political, and economic upheaval, embodied by our president, but not caused entirely by him. Fundamental challenge of the left is to ask not only how do we stop reactionary conservative imagination from progressing to reality, but to also ask how do we communicate our own imagination and make progress towards its reality. Working in media, this is a fundamental task. For me, perhaps because of my work, one answer is youth. My job is to imagine a future that can be reached from our present and to deliver it to young readers in articles that they can read 15 minutes in between class. I have noticed in the last year that the climate crisis presents perhaps the most universal issue to activate the political and economic imagination of a new generation. And as with the gun violence prevention movement that arose after the Parkland shooting in 2018, we have seen young leaders centering black activists grappling with the legacy of slavery, centering Latinx activists targeted not just by the current administration, but by decades, if not centuries, of U.S. foreign policy, and indigenous activists, part of communities whose stewardship of our land is a mistake and an injustice that we have yet to account for. When I look at these young activists, when I cover their protests, and when I interview them, I think of Karl Marx, who was only 29 when his manifesto was published. Youth has always been an essential element of the left, and it must remain so. You look at the historical movements, protest movements in the United States, from the Civil Rights Movement, where you had students leading sit-ins, the anti-war movement of Vietnam that took place on campuses, even the Stonewall Uprising in 1969, which we just marked the 50th anniversary of this year. There was 18, 19, 20-year-old kids ostracized from their families, run away to New York, and fed up with the fact that the cops and the mob had them at their mercy. If we are to imagine a future without capitalism, we must prioritize the input of the people who will be left to live in it. I never imagined that I would go from working in maintenance for a student housing slumlord, plunging frat boys' toilets, or from mandatory 70-hour weeks in a factory in Ohio to the World Trade Center, where I might run into Anna Wintour in the elevator. But it is impossible not because of capitalism. It is not a capitalist success story. It is a success story despite capitalism. And it is a reminder that even when our imagination fails us, new realities are available to us so long as we are willing to be right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lucy. In addition to our very trained councillor in Belfast and the group of socialist elected reps across Ireland, we've also seen that development elsewhere. We're delighted